Today's video is being recorded on the 22nd of August, 2024. And it's important that I state that because this information may very well be subject to change. And should that information change, I'll make an update video as that becomes relevant. Yesterday, I did a video on the Rarebreed trigger situation, an update that we got from Reed O'Connor's office, which is the district court judge that made the ruling. And since then, I received a cascade of messages from you guys, not only comments and videos, but like all across my social media messaging, asking me directly, hey, which FRT triggers are legal to acquire, because Rarebreed's having some issues with the state of New York right now, et cetera, et cetera. Lots and lots of questions, but they all come down to the center of, hey, I want one of these things, but I don't know what's legal. And we're going to shelve the discussion of law-abiding citizen versus peaceable citizen. You know, that's not what we're doing here today. Can versus able. No, just simply, what is the current status? And I also want to run through a couple scenarios that we might see coming down the pipe in the coming days and weeks that could alter that status. I want to create a reference video for you guys, not only what the current status is, but should one of these things happen, you know how to act accordingly. So send this out to people who need to see it. And really quick, we're going to take a capitalism break and we're going to dig into this thing pretty deep. Today's video is brought to you by SlingSteady. SlingSteady is a system that was designed to create a more stable, easy to use, reliable squeeze bag than anything else on the market. It is a lightweight squeeze bag that attaches directly to your sling for recreational shooters, hunting, and long-range shots. With this, you're able to steady your rifle quicker and more effectively than ever before, and it attaches in just a couple seconds. This is an American-made product, and you can find all that information over on our affiliates page. Special thanks to SlingSteady for making today's video possible. Currently, as of right this second, all triggers that are classified as forced reset devices are legal. Asterisks. And we're going to come back to that asterisk here in a few minutes. There are two judicial functions that made this possible. A district court judge by the name of Reed O'Connor vacated the rule, which means that he threw it out. It basically never existed as far as we are concerned right now. Asterisks. We'll come back to that here in a few minutes. He also ordered separate injunctive relief to the plaintiffs, and that is National Association of Gun Rights. And in National Association of Gun Rights, Rarebreed Triggers, the company, is a member of NAGR. And all of the downstream commercial clients, so any customers of Rarebreed, are covered in the injunctive relief, which includes the things like, hey, you got to give all the triggers back. Hey, you got to tell everybody that you sent letters to that you were wrong and they aren't machine guns, all that stuff that you've heard us talk about. All of which I find epically hilarious that the ATF has to basically apologize to everybody, eat crow, and give all the triggers back. But it also protects those plaintiffs from enforcement of the rule. So you've got a nationwide vacature, get that thing out of here, right? But then on top of that, it is expressly stated that the ATF and all of their agents and employees, et cetera, cannot enforce the rule against the plaintiffs. And so there's a two angles of attack, if you will. So for the sake of discussion, let's create a fake trigger, okay? So that we can basically inject ourselves into this argument of what is and what is not legal. Let's call that trigger the Whiz Bang 9000, okay? Currently, you can legally purchase a Whiz Bang 9000 from anywhere that is selling them. It doesn't matter. It's 100% legal currently. However, there are a few happenings that could be coming down the pipe in the next couple days or weeks that could drastically change that, because those two pillars are in place, the vacatur and the injunctive relief for the plaintiffs. If either one of those is messed with, then that situation changes. So, asterisk time. Scenario 1. Again, the ATF is currently under injunction and vacatur. But that's not to say that they can't go out and find some other court somewhere that is sympathetic to their cause and get them to say, oh no, this is totally cool. At that point in time, you end up with a situation where you've got conflicting district court opinions in two different decisions of similar scope at the same level. One says one thing, one says the other. At that point in time, you find yourself caught between a battle between two district courts. And what do you think the ATF is going to do about that? So that creates a problem for anybody who is under the jurisdiction of that second court. Say a rogue court somewhere out of like California or New York decides that they want to step into it and say, no, we like what the ATF is doing, and rule in their favor. Well, then that creates a problem. And in that instance, we wouldn't be talking about either of these pillars because it would likely look like a completely different decision out of that district court and the subsequent circuit courts. Now, personally, I don't think that that's likely. That's going to take a fair amount of time to play out, but it could be a possibility if scenario 2 doesn't go the ATF's way. Scenario 2, the ATF has appealed this and asked for a stay pending appeal. So there's two things there, the actual appeal and the stay pending appeal. Now, we've heard out of Reed O'Connor's office, yesterday's video was about Reed O'Connor basically telling the ATF to go get fucked, but we still haven't heard from the Fifth Circuit. And there are a couple things that could happen at the Fifth Circuit depending on what they say, and we should probably be hearing from them relatively soon. The first thing that the Fifth could say is, go away, or we will taunt you a second time. They could tell them to get lost, in which case the ATF is likely to appeal up to the Supreme Court on an emergency basis, say, hey, we really, really want this thing stayed. We really, really want you guys to hear this. And almost certainly the SCOTUS would deny that appeal on the interlocutory posture argument. They've had many cases come up to them lately that are in the interlocutory posture, which means that they haven't quite been decided by the lower courts yet. The SCOTUS, unless it's egregious, and even we've had some really egregious cases show up to them, quote unquote, early, and they're like, nah, let the lower courts figure it out and then bring it to us. We don't like to step in until we are the authority. Everybody else has said all their stuff down below, and almost certainly the Supreme Court of the United States, if the ATF were to do that, would say, nah, get lost. The second thing that could happen at the Fifth Circuit, they could decide that something that Reed O'Connor did was less than cool. Now, remember, we got the two pillars. The rule has been vacated, been thrown out, and then we also have the injunctive relief portion of it. Now, the injunctive relief portion that pertains specifically to Rarebreed and NAGR and those guys, I don't think is likely that the Fifth Circuit will really mess with that, because all of that is narrowly tailored for relief to the plaintiffs, and that's the kind of thing that the circuit court likes to see, that it is narrowly tailored for relief to the plaintiffs, and it doesn't really reach outside of the plaintiffs. There's a logical basis for why the people that are protected, and the people who get their stuff back are getting their stuff back, right? However, what we have seen happen in the past at circuit courts is vacators have been thrown out. If that happens, or they issue a partial stay on the decision while they hear the case, then those nationwide protections are now void. And if we bring back in the whiz-bang 5,000 or 9,000, that we were talking about earlier, I guess there are two variants now available. In that scenario, the whiz-bang at 9,000 would no longer be legal for sale unless Rarebreed Triggers specifically sold it, because the nationwide protections, the vacatur is out of here, but they still can't have the rule enforced against them. So unless the company themselves, Rarebreed, as an organizational plaintiff, under NAGR is the one that is actually doing the transacting with the downstream businesses, well, then anybody who has one of those items is no longer protected. Well, as I mentioned earlier, Rarebreed is being pretty cautious about the commercial activities because they are currently under an injunction from the state of New York, where they have a situation basically keeping them from doing business right now. So this scenario, I have no reason to believe that the Fifth Circuit would do that. However, we have seen them in instances before, not only in the Fifth Circuit, but in other circuits, say, hey, that is not narrowly tailored to the plaintiffs, and they've thrown out things like vacators that are nationwide. So there's a difference between a nationwide injunction and a vacatur. We'll see what sticks, but of the scenarios that I've presented to you, that's one that you should really be paying attention to, particularly if you are somebody who's trying to go purchase one of those quote unquote off brands that is not easily traced back to Rarebreed themselves. So, all eyes on the Fifth Circuit, and I will do my best to keep you guys updated when we have new news from them. So thank you guys very much for tuning into the VSO Gun Channel. That's what I have for you. I'd like to know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. I know that you guys will have some very vigorous opinions about this, and I like to read that sort of stuff when I wake up every morning and know that my countrymen are still hacked off at their government. So thank you guys very much. Make sure you send this to all the people who need to see it, and hopefully we'll see you on another video here at the VSO Gun Channel.